The reality of deportation from the United States for undocumented immigrants means more than just leaving behind their home. What meets them in their home countries is often closer to death and violence than we might think. Following one woman's individual journey through deportation, along with several others, this New Yorker piece focuses on the fear and uncertainty surrounding the U.S. government when immigrants' lives are at stake. The history of this issue is changing, and this article addresses what exactly is being done and not being done to help change the violent and tragic outcomes of deportation in America. This story is structured surrounding one character in particular. The story of an undocumented Mexican immigrant living in Texas named Laura is woven chronologically between factual information on the topic of deportation. Included with the history and current state of the U.S.'s deportation system are other stories of different individuals and families who have been affected by the government's deportation policies and strategies. The reporter begins with Laura's story, seamlessly moving into reports regarding general U.S. deportation under Trump and before Trump, connecting it to a different individual's story, only to transition back to the next chapter, you could say, of Laura's. Ultimately, pieces of Laura's story are woven chronologically between commentary and factual information regarding the history and present-day reality of what deportation looks like in the U.S. This structure is a storytelling format, considering that when the reader is following pieces of one story throughout the whole entire piece, while being given background information directly related to how one story ended up turning out. With every piece of knowledge given, the reader becomes more involved and more invested in the outcome of Laura and her family and how little was done to protect her. A passage I found that stood out to me was toward the beginning of this article. Quote, "As the sun rose, Laura stepped onto the bridge and into a much larger story, one that has launched a major legal battle over the U.S. government's duty to protect prospective deportees who plead for their lives. The lawsuit, and others like it, has implications for the treatment of hundreds of thousands of immigrants who have found refuge in the United States and for whom deportation can be tantamount to death." End quote. I think this passage exemplifies excellent writing as it interweaves the picture of what is happening to individuals being deported on a personal level with the greater, less personal picture of what is occurring within the U.S. government. The passage acts as a sort of transition from Laura's story to a more general depiction of America's mishandling of deportations and deportees. I think it does a fantastic job contrasting the emotional aspects of deportation stories with the reality of the strictness, pain, and emotionlessness that the U.S. brings to the table. I would describe the tone of this story as extremely painful and somber. I teared up while reading it solely because the magnitude of the issue this reporter addresses is so incredibly looked over and is so much larger than I had realized, even despite knowing information about this topic prior to reading the article. The stories shared don't even begin to represent the amount of lives that have been altered and lost as a result of the way the U.S. treats its undocumented immigrants when they are faced with possible deportation, and this fact had me extremely concerned and almost shocked when I was finished reading.